Thanks so much for joining me for the Chanel Winter Glow collection. I picked up several items from the collection, including the palette. We also have here 2 of the blushes, which I'll try on side by side for you. And then we also have 2 of the lip products as well. I'll also be swatching some other items that reminded me of some of these shades, especially the blushes that I tried on. So let's go ahead and get started. Going in with Le Base Illuminatrice, I tried to pick up the Icy Beige, which is more of like a warm tone. This actually has a warm tone to it, but it was out of stock. So we're just gonna go in with this one, which is really nice. I really like this primer. Yeah, let me know if you picked up any of the limited edition primers. Since we're doing a Le Beige look, I thought we would go in with the Water Fresh Tint. Not a new product to me, but we're gonna use a couple of shades here. Let's use medium for more of the center of the face and medium plus for more of the exterior, because I'm a little bit lighter here in the winter. You'll have a really nice fresh skin appearance with this look. I have a bit of a blemish there. And one of the unique aspects of the Water Fresh tint is that it has a glow to its finish, but it doesn't feel sticky or slippery. It dries down really nicely. Medium plus on the exterior here. Okay, now let's go in with another Le Beige product here. We're going in with this. It's the Water Fresh Complexion Touch. I'm going to use that for the darker areas here. I'm going to use a concealer brush. I have mine in the shade B30. This is a bit light, as you can see here, but it's okay for the center of my face. This is a Sephora 57 Pro Concealer Brush. I might go in and perfect that a little bit more after it sets. It works nicely in layers if you want to add a little bit more coverage. While we let that set for a moment, let's go in with the eye concealer. This is the Sublimage Under Eye Concealer, and this is in 40. It's quite intense, so I'm going to go in really light-handedly here because I don't have a perfected base. So we're going to make this a little bit more lightweight. Oh, this is a Sephora number 71 Pro Concealer Brush. I'm just gonna put the excess up here in the eye area. I wanna go in with a little bit of this Chantecaille Le Camouflage Stilo because there's still just a bit of darkness, but I wanna keep the concealer pretty lightweight. I also was looking for my powder, which I cannot find right now. I don't know what happened to it. My Le Beige powder. And then right here in the darkest area. Going with their cream bronzer, this is in 392. I've got a number 5 REPHR brush here. This just fell down, the palette, but it didn't break. Like I said, I couldn't find the Chanel powder, so I'm gonna go with this Hermes powder. Just right in the center here. I thought we could go in with just a little bit of Hourglass for a little glow. This is in Dim Light. This is a teeny tiny one. This is gonna blur the discoloration a little bit too. Okay, let me just do some brows and then we're gonna finally do the eyes. I would have gone in with my Chanel Brow Duo, the powder side, but I couldn't find it. So I went in with the second and third steps that I normally do, which is very nice as well if you want something a little less perfected. This is the Jones Road, my favorite brow gel of 2023. This is in light brunette, which you think wouldn't be the right shade for me, but it works really well. And then we have here the Baby Blade by Victoria Beckham in dark brown. Okay, let's finally go in with the eye that I dropped. I can't believe I dropped this. It's so interesting that this is named Cool. So I initially thought this is going to be more of like a purpley toned palette, but it really didn't come across that way when I swatched it. It was like a peachy pink kind of a palette. But this one, which is medium, should actually be, I think, more of the Cool palette. That has more cool tones than the actual Cool palette. I did film a video that I don't think I posted yet where I do a modern matte look using this palette. So if you want to see that one, the medium palette, it's not a new palette to me, but I just thought it would be perfect for something a little bit more soft. I did that with this palette. But let's use this one in Cool. So I was looking at this when I swatched it. It wasn't totally clear to me how to use all of the shades. So we're gonna go in with this shade all over the lid, this first one up here on the top, see how that goes. So this was nice and creamy, I remember on swatch. You can see it has a pinkier tone to it. I'm going to go all the way up. This is a REPHR number 28. Go all the way up. Probably could have taken a bigger brush for this. I washed all my brushes, so they're not all here right now. So this is going to be interesting. What I'm going to put in the crease area, let's go in with this one. This is why I think it's going to look pink. So I have here a number 27 REPHR, going in with this shade right here. Yeah, it looks really pink. And if you've been here, pink is not my favorite kind of eyeshadow, but this one is a bit more muted, so I think that's why this might work. There's a bit of a lilac tone in here. Okay, so far it looks fine. It's just the color story. It's not my favorite already, so. But let's go in with this. Let's go in with this darkest shade, see if we can do something interesting with this. This is a REPHR number 14 Mini. I'm gonna take that color, and so far none of the shades are super original, I'm gonna say. These all remind me of something I've tried. I can't recall what exactly this reminds me of, but I feel like I have either shades like this dispersed amongst other palettes, although I have to say that went on really nicely. But nothing super unique here so far. I think it really is this purple that's pulling it together for me. Without this, I don't know if it'd come together for me. Yeah, this is not the easiest palette to use. It's not like the medium. This medium palette is really easy to use because the colors are so versatile. I really wasn't seeing many one and dones in here either. Go ahead and blend a little. So let's go in with this shade right here and go right next to the deepest shade, cranberry tone to it. I mean, if you like these shades, you might really like it. This is just not really my thing, but we'll get it to work. This might be a one and done, I don't know. This has a potential to be a one and done, this shade right here that I'm adding. Okay, and then let's go in with this sparkly shade. It's got like a duochrome iridescence, like unicorn glow to it. This one right here. And this might bring down that reddish tone in there. I don't know, let's see. It's got like a lilac-y tone. Does have more evident particles in it though. It's got some definite intermittent shimmer, some larger particles, kind of like snow, like a snowflake. That's what it reminds me of, which makes sense. Yeah, there's like an iciness to this shade. A little bit of a blue. And let's take this deepest shade, we're gonna turn it into an eyeliner. I'm gonna add some mascara and then let's go ahead and try the blushes on. I put on mascara, Faux Cils Longest Flash Mascara by Chantecaille, my favorite mascara. We're gonna go ahead and clean up the edges here with Cle de Peau's Honey, just to tidy up the corners and then fill in the dark areas there. Okay, let's go ahead underneath with a little bit of Trench, just to brighten. Smooth out this area here. Let's go in with the blush now. So I have two blushes. I've got Rose Polaire, and then also I have here Corail Givre. Corail Givre? The coral one. So I've got a pink and a coral one, essentially. I didn't pick up the mauve. I have two of the same brush. One of my favorite brushes here, we've got the Ray Morris Mini Kabuki. And let's go in with the pink shade first. And this one seemed to have a little bit more of a refined, creamier texture than the coral. And I don't know if it was just the one I got, but I noticed it was a little bit different. So let's see if there's a difference once they're on the skin. If you didn't see the unboxing, it has that lovely snowflake pattern on it. It's really pretty with a double CC on there. There's a bit of an embedded glow. There are reflective particles in here, but they're very fine and they're very even. So no intermittent shimmer here. Nothing detectable in terms of individual particles. I can't see individual particles, but I can see that there is it's not matte, there's a glow. You can see it there too. But it's not like the level of a highlighter either, because some blushes are really glowy. But this one is nice and even. skin flattering kind of a glow. Kind of reminds me of the Cle de Peau blushes in terms of the glow. I can actually take those out and swatch them against these as well. But it kind of reminds me of, is it number 3 in the Cle de Peau? They have those duo blushes. Reminds me a little bit of those. And there's a creaminess to it. Like I can almost feel this sticking to my skin. That's how creamy this feels. Maybe my skin is just really hydrated, but there's a little bit of like almost a stick to it. It's really pretty, very gentle. It looks like it's going to be really bold, but it's not intense going on. It actually looks a little bit lighter on than it does in the pan, which always is something interesting I find with Chanel blushes, that they typically look really different on versus in the pan. So I think Chanel blushes are one of those things that you kind of have to see on someone to see what it really will look like. Okay, let's go in with this coral blush on this side. But yeah, there's like a coolness, like an iciness to this pink. So let's go in with the coral. This kind of reminds me of remember that duo, like a dual blush where it was like a coral and then like a lighter peachy shade? It kind of reminds me of that. Let me pull out my coral blushes also by Chanel to compare for you in some swatches. So that immediately kind of reminds me also of Chantecaille's, when they had the duos, where it was like a blush and a highlighter in, I bought 2 of them. This one was, I think, whale shark? Oh gosh, I can't remember, but there's one, I'll pull it out. But it kind of reminds me of that too. This is more vibrant and it has a gold sheen. And yes, this is consistent with what I was seeing on the swatch. The particles are more visible in the coral than on the pink version. And you can definitely see that there's a gold sheen to this. It's really pretty. So if you're a coral blush fan, you might really like this because it's truly got a coral shade to it. It has though like a goldish glow to it. More visible particles. I mean, they're not chunky, but I can definitely see it's a different kind of glow than here. It's almost like the glow, if I can describe it this way, each glow particle is more of a sphere. I don't know if that's a shape, but that's the way it's reflecting the light, and that it's very soft. This one appears as though the reflective particles are not round spheres. It looks like they're more flat particles. Again, that's just the impression. I don't know how they manufactured this, but that's the overall appearance of what I'm seeing. So you can just see more edges. I mean, you can't see the edges. It's really hard to explain because it looks as though it's flat, like they're reflecting off of flat surfaces versus like round surfaces for the glow. And that's why I feel like I can see more. I mean, I can't see individual particles, they're so small, but I feel like the glow quality is different, and I'm seeing it in the camera here. There's more of a face defining quality to this in terms of bone structure. It kind of brings out the bone structure versus this, which is more of a flat glow. Oh gosh, I hope I'm describing that well, but it is a different kind of a glow. So yeah, I would love to know how they manufactured both of these because I'm seeing a different result. Beautiful though. I mean, it's so minute, but it might be important to some of you, but I think they're both beautiful. I can definitely see more individual particles versus this. Again, it's not huge, but when comparing the two, this is just more of like a plasma kind of a glow versus this one, which is a embedded particles kind of a glow. But both really beautiful. I think they're both really pretty. So there's a coral, and there's pink. Okay, now the trick is going to be to try to even these out. I think I like this better with the overall eye though. I mean, it's more of a wintry thing, but that on its own is a beautiful blush. I don't know if I would pair it with this eye, but it's really pretty. Okay, so let's go ahead and just add a bit of the coral to the side. I think I'm gonna end up looking like I have a lot. Actually, that works really nicely. It's more of a, you know what this introduces to this shade over here is more of like it's a sun kiss, like having been out in the sun, skiing for the day, that kind of a thing. So actually, since that is the effect, I'm gonna go up here a little bit more as if I've been out in the sun, in the snow. Okay, I actually really like them not surprisingly, together. I love to blend blushes together because I think you get more dimension. I think it's more interesting. And blush takes up a lot of real estate. So that's why I really think blush is so important. Let's go in with this shade now, the pink. And let's try and see if we can even these out. I think I would do that. Go in with the coral first, but more targeted here. And then use this pink one to blend it. Yeah, it's much more refined, more skin flattering, I've got to say, the pink one. So I would be careful about bringing the coral up front because it's not as blurring. This has a little bit of a blurring effect versus the coral, but both really beautiful. I'm going to try the lip products on. One of them, another item that I picked up was because of request. I don't think I would have picked this up, Keep Cool, because I just knew it was probably going to be too light, and it's really looks different to me than online. It's much cooler and lighter than I thought it would be. It's 938. So it's just on the bottom. It's kind of like icy is the whole thing. These are all, except for the coral, like icy looking effects. So there's that. It kind of washes me out, but it's a look. I feel like it's editorial. I think if you were doing something like a winter shoot, I think this works really well. I have some color to my lips already, so it's picking up the cooler tone and making them look even cooler. So I think that's why it doesn't work really well for me. So I think the color of your lips really will impact the way this looks because it's quite sheer. So you're gonna see that color and it's going to bring out more of the cool tones like you just saw here. Wow, that blush is really pretty though for this effect. Let's go in with number 940. And this is Coconut. That's not coconut, it's Cocoon. Would not make sense for it to be called Coconut. Although it does remind me of more of a summer color. Okay, let's try this one on. To me, this works better with the cheek shades, but we can also layer. So this is also a bit sheer, but you can see it works better, but I still don't know if this whole thing works together. I feel like now the lip and the cheeks are kind of fighting. So let's see what we can do. But this is by itself 940. Let's try this. Let's try 938 not by itself, on top as a topper. This might balance everything out. Just like the cheek and both cheek shades together, I think work really well. Let's see how these work. This feels a little more hydrating. I'm focusing this on the center, but I really prefer them together. I feel like now it works. I'm just gonna do just a little bit of blur powder on the front just to take down a little bit of the glow in the front. I feel like maybe I need to just take down, so this is Chantecaille's Perfect Blur Powder. I'm just gonna take down a little bit of just right here in the front. Marble by Victoria Beckham, just to do a bit of a contour here. Let's take a bit of sculpting, just the high points. And down the bridge of the nose. I'm just gonna put a little bit on my eyelids. I'm gonna just take a little bit like this and go in the center of the eyelid. Really gently. Just added a little bit onto the earring there and then did my hair, of course, with the Dyson Airwrap that I love. But I wanted to do some comparison swatches for you and then give you some recommendations. I took out a few blushes that reminded me of Rose Polaire. This had a really interesting finish to it. It was very soft. The finish, not necessarily the shade, reminded me of this Flower Power Cheek shade by Chantecaille, if you ever had that one. First we have Chanel's Rose Polaire, and then let's give this a swatch. So this one by Chantecaille has more of a glow to it. So if you like that one, the Chanel is more muted in its glow. I have some Chanel blushes coming up, but if you liked this by Chantecaille, this one in the beautiful packaging, the one with all of the pearls, this is Etoile. So Etoile has more of that soft glow, but still has more glow than the Chanel, and it's much cooler. So if you have this shade, you can see that even though that rose is cool, it's not as cool as something like Etoile. And then we have this one. If you remember this, I think it came out a year and a half ago or so. This one was Fantasy de Chanel, and this has a definite glow embedded in it. So let's take a look. Yeah, so you can definitely see here, there's more glow on this one than Rose Polaire. Now shade-wise, I wanted to pull this out. This is number 72. 72 is definitely close, but Rose Polaire still has more warmth, just a hint more warmth than number 72. And then this one, which is my favorite blush by Chanel, which I cannot find on their website. This is number 68. I did want to see if Rose Polaire was anywhere close to 68. And when I tried it on, I didn't think it would be, but it's actually a little bit in the neighborhood, but the finish is so different, so I wouldn't say that they are similar. One more comparison for Rose Polaire that I forgot I pulled out. This is by Suikyu, and this is an O2 Haruoto. So again, Rose Polaire by Chanel. And here's the Suikyu blush. It's very similar. It has more of a raspberry tone to it, but very similar looking finish. Very soft glow. Okay, I almost forgot this one. Right away though, I see there are different tones, but the finish really reminded me of the Cle de Peau blushes, and I think I said 3, that's not correct. This one is 102. Such a beautiful blush. So we've got Rose Polaire on the left and Cle de Peau 102 on the right. And you can see why they reminded me of each other. These probably have the most similar finish of the blushes that I swatched here in terms of comparison. They felt more similar and very, very similar glow on these in terms of the level of glow. So if you have, actually not all Cle de Peau blushes, but this one specifically, you know how skin flattering this blush is, which makes sense because I saw the same skin flattering finish with the Chanel Rose Polaire. That's probably the closest match. But the Cle de Peau, as you can see, is a bit more intense, a little bit more raspberry tone on that one than the Chanel. Next up, we've got the Coral blush. You can see there too, a little bit closer up of that glow that I was talking about. It's much more evident in this one. You can also see it on the swatch there. Just catches the light a little bit more distinctly. And this is the one that it reminded me of. And when this was released, which was at the beginning of the year that it was released, I called this as my favorite blush. And it was, it's so beautiful. So let's take a look at them side by side. It was from this collection. There they are side by side, so you can see why they reminded me of each other. Okay, so these are very close, but not exactly the same. So the Coral from the new collection this year, this one right here, has more of a gold glow to it, a golden glow. The sheen on the one from years past is much more delicate. Actually, I think this right here is more coral than the actual Coral one because it's got that vibrant tone to it. This year's is a bit more subdued in its intensity, but the glow on this one is more intense. This one here, that has a bit more smooth texture to it. A little bit more like the Rose Polaire. It felt like that in terms of its texture. It wasn't Whale Shark, but it was Manta Ray by CHANTECAILLE that this one also reminded me of. And this is from years ago, but this was one of my all-time favorite blushes, especially for Coral. Okay, so you can see there, wow, how close the Chanel and the CHANTECAILLE are. You can see how close those two are. So no wonder I loved those because I love a good coral and they have a very, very similar appearance on the skin. I would say the CHANTECAILLE was just a little bit smoother, but you can see the intensity is greater on that CHANTECAILLE than the new one by Chanel. But I knew there was something else that had a coral tone to it. And it's this one right here, Corail Etoile. And that was this one with the star and the CC. Wow, also very close. So this one also has a glow to it. However, the one from this year, this one right here, the one from this year has more glow than any of these that I just swatched. Not much, but there's more of a distinct particle glow to it. And again, it's gold. And it's a bit more subdued than the other corals I just swatched. Okay, this is the Cool palette. I thought there were a couple of shades that reminded me of something else. But before we do that, I thought I'd show you Tender next to it. Cool does have more cool tones, even though they didn't look super cool on me. They're more cool than Tender. And those are the colors that reminded me of this palette. This deeper, more cranberry shade is Crane. And then the lighter one is Pangolin. It's actually the deeper shades here on the bottom that reminded me. So let's go ahead and swatch. And this is that cranberry shade in the Chanel palette. Let's try Crane next to that. Okay, so Crane is actually more on that purpley side, so that makes me think of that deepest shade in the Chanel palette. So let's swatch that. Okay, so now we've added that deepest shade by Chanel, and those are very similar. Different levels of shimmer. That looks very similar to the particles in Crane by CHANTECAILLE, but there are a lot fewer particles in the Chanel. than in that Chantecaille. Let's just swatch Pangolin to see what that looks like. Pangolin is in the same family, but it's definitely not the same as the Chanel. So I hope the swatches helped out in your decision making, but let's talk about the products really quickly. So we've got the palette here. Like I said, reminds me of other products, but I feel like this isn't really the star of the show. I think it works actually quite cohesively. I went and I looked in the mirror when I did my hair, and the whole look really does come together as kind of a winter look in that you've been out in the snow or in the sun for the day and really gotten that sun-kissed look on the cheeks. While this is not my favorite palette, I think it does work nicely with this. It's got a very subtle appearance to it, so you're not going to get a lot of intensity unless you build this up quite a bit. This was using the very similar techniques to what I normally do with makeup. And you can see the color payoff is a little bit more subtle, but I do think it is quite cohesive with this. Now, the star of the show, I think, are the cheek products here. They are really lovely and I really enjoy them together. I think they looked beautiful on their own, but it wasn't until I saw them together and then again looked in the mirror to look at them together that I could see how beautiful the blushes really are. So if you're looking for a sun-kissed winter look, I think that it's these blushes that do it. Pink does seem a little bit creamier, has a little bit more of a skin flattering finish though than the coral. The coral does have a little bit less creaminess to it, a little bit more dry, and then does have more visible particles, a different kind of a glow, and that is more of a golden glow on the coral. But I would definitely use it as a pop of color for the coral first and then go over it with the pink. For the lip products, again, this is the same thing. I don't think I would use either one of them on their own, but I would use this Keep Cool as a topper for lip products if I wanted to bring down the brightness of a lipstick or also the warmth. I bring it down with this. Really nice feel on that one. And then for 940, again, it's a little bit bright without evening out my lip tone, which is what I prefer, especially if I'm going to go brighter. So I would use that in tandem with the Keep Cool. I hope that was helpful for you to see them on and see them in action. But let me know if you picked up anything or if you have any further questions or any other swatches you were wondering about, because I can always post them in the community tab or on Instagram. Just let me know. But that is it for today's video. So please take care of each other. Stay well if you enjoyed this video. If you learned something, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you next time.